Blackballed, 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 Blackballed.
You're on the opposite side.
You can't just yell at people in a park.
What? So what is it, huh? Get out of here.
Welcome everybody to Blackballed. My name is James D. Fury, and that was an idiot. Sometimes do you feel like you're talking to yourself when you want people to be civil when it comes to politics, or when people express opinions about vaccines or some other wedge issue that you just wish that two people could disagree with each other and just talk to each other instead? And I don't know if you're like me, but I think those days are unfortunately few and far in between. And my guest today is not part of the problem. And but I think what might be happening, and she's going to either set me straight or we can discuss it or whatever, is that political content like that, where you go into public and you shoot footage, is becoming more and more dangerous. And let's just get right into it, because this is something that I just thought about after that video. I mean, I've thought about it with Caryma specifically a lot, but other than that, I'm now thinking that it just is generally a bad idea. But we'll try to sort that out. So please welcome to Blackballed again. I think she's the four-time. I guess you're like the four-time champion. You're at least the intercontinental champion of guest slots on the show. Caryma Sa'd, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Hi.
I would take intercontinental champion any day.
It's a very unheralded belt, but really, you get to do more events. I don't know what I'm talking about right now.
It has a prestigious history. No, you're on point.
Yes,
you're
it does.
On point.
Okay, good. I stopped watching when like it was like the year 2000 or something, but I watched until then with great joy and glee, and then I felt like a person that shouldn't do it anymore. The girl, it wasn't really a good topic or conversation with women. So what do you like to do? Watch wrestling. Do you play video games too?
You're meeting the wrong women, obviously. But
that's true. That was a long time ago. Anyways, so we just saw the video. You have arrested in the last little while. You have been the target of some pretty malicious online attacks, and then Kensington's a weird place all on its own. I think people should understand. I used to live there, and it is a hippie neighborhood, and then but it's almost like the transport. It's like the transit route for people for people that are walking from like Queen to college. And sometimes and often, they're going to buy drugs and they're walking through Kensington. I used to live there. I just remember the routes they took. There's a lot of alleys there. But it's still a hippie neighborhood. And during the day, something like that shouldn't happen to you. I don't think this is random anymore. This negative attention that you're getting, I don't think it's just idiots. And it could have just been an isolated incident. And I really hope for your sake that it was. But that overarching idea that I wanted to talk to you about, just about creating political content, and if there's like an inherent danger to it now.
It's an interesting point. I don't know. Certainly my experience has been that it's put a bit of a target on my back. When I'm out and about at a rally, I sort of anticipate people talking to me, reacting to me, disagreeing with me, conversing, whatever. So that's one thing. But it has happened a few times now where I get approached aggressively outside of that context. And, there's nothing about me apart from that type of work that I think would draw that attention. So I have to believe that there is some level of connection. And it is concerning from sort of the perspective of could this have a chilling effect on others? Is it going to have a chilling effect on me? And that's something that I work through, and I'm constantly reevaluating the way that I approach this period. And, if you review my footage over the past year and a half, 2 years, it changes as I learn lessons and adapt. And it's a constantly shifting landscape. So those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, and it's it is really concerning that people that are targeting you are probably at least a couple dozen times a day shouting the word freedom, like Mel Gibson, at the top of their lungs, but they can't stand sight of a person who is utilizing their freedom. It would be different if you were an aggressive, obnoxious, in your face, sandbagging kind of gonzo
I'm
journalist.
kind of obnoxious, but definitely not aggressive. And
Who called you obnoxious? I'll kill him. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
Just a
it
reflex,
is
I
what it
apologize.
is, right? It is what it is. I'm a little bit obnoxious sometimes, but not when I'm out recording footage. And the vast majority of people who approach me are of the freedom variety. There are a few who are on the opposite end of the political spectrum, who have equal distaste for me. So I'll put that out there, but the only physical aggression I've encountered has been from the freedom folks, and otherwise it's been sort of veiled threats and mooning. So that's sort of its own thing to unpack. But to your point, I think that you were trying to make, I'm not a gotcha type of journalist, documentarian, whatever. I try to be unobtrusive, and where I am part of a scene, it's really, I don't want it to be about me. It's about the person who is reacting to me. So I don't know what it is that provokes people. This particular incident was entirely, it started off entirely unprovoked. I was sitting on a bench. These guys passed by. They yell their freedom shtick. Then they are out of sight, still in earshot. They get a bit more vulgar. And then they go their way, and I leave the park and encounter them again on, we were heading in the same direction. So I don't know. Was there a question there? I'm not sure. But what is wrong with people, if that's what we're getting at? I do not know. People have lost their damn minds.
I'm glad that you pointed out that you get it from the other side too. Not equal responsibility there right now. Clearly, the far right in this country are being a lot more obnoxious and headstrong and aggressive than the far left. But it kind of this is one of the big reasons why I like so much in the work that you do, is because I don't look at you and think to myself, there's a very far left person. I don't like to put labels on people anyway, but I don't see you as that. And I think that's to your benefit in a sense, because you are clearly a progressive, but you're moderate, or you're rational, or there's just something about you that doesn't want to just take a position for the sake that it's on that side of the spectrum. And I think maybe that pisses off people who do operate like that. I'm not sure if that's something they ever even thought about, but I think we're talking about anti-hate and people.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a centrist, right? So it's not that I pick the least controversial position on any given issue, but I do think that issues need to be assessed on their own merit. And if there's one thing I've learned just from my vantage point, watching people engage and have discussions and arguments and fights online, and I sort of sit back and watch this unfold, people are just patchworks of opinions, and some of them are good and some of them are less good if I'm judging, and they obviously would feel differently. But the idea of sort of a uniformity of thought and approach, I think, is really unhelpful, and it actually stifles progressive thinking, because if your politics are based on everyone agreeing with each other at any given point in time, and the second you step out of line, you're to be targeted or called out or called in or whatever, but it's not based on values. It's based on an approach.
Hypocrisy.
Right. It's just, it's not a productive way to pursue things. So like that's been sort of my experience. And again, I'll reiterate, like the physical threats I've dealt with are, from the right side of the political spectrum, but that's not to say that I haven't been harassed on the other side. And it's very frustrating, but also I get to see some of the similarities and patterns that emerge. And people, would be maybe upset at me pointing that out. But that's the case. Like this idea of there's an orthodoxy, and whether, you ascribe to it or not, that's what we are imposing, and we're going to impose it very rigidly. And if you associate with this person, unfollow, block, like just divest. It's not,
Yeah.
we can't live in silos like that. So I don't, and this is perhaps my thinking as a criminal defense lawyer, right? Where you work with people who have sometimes done bad things, and often there are stories behind that don't get shared for the general public. Sometimes, that's not to justify the commission of crime, but it's a lot more complex than simply person A did something bad and we must punish them, and sort of this thirst for punishment and vengeance and passing judgment on others when none of us really are in a position to do that. And that's not the same as not having opinions, but I see sort of the angry mob, and it exists, and sometimes it's on my side and other times it's not. But I think we really should be critical about that phenomenon, because it is dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. And yes, most of this plays out online. So, the stakes are not the same as sort of pitchforks and torches. But it's a very short leap, as I am realizing.
It feels there's a glitch, and we're kind of seeing things I don't think I've ever seen in politics before. A quick example would be, when would you ever imagine, like, for this pandemic, waking up and being like, the right is really upset right now because some assembly is being questioned and authoritated towards by the police. And the left is like, we could really use a lot more law and order at protests. I never
It's
thought
so
I'd ever see
backward.
this day,
It's
and
so
I'm
backward.
And so, to that point, is it because we're less concerned about our rights than we are about our issues?
I do think that there's not enough concern about basic civil liberties, and a very short-sighted approach in how we regulate that. And, from my perspective, the government hasn't done anything to warrant being in a position of sort of the arbiter of truth, or sort of what's fair to say, what's not fair to say. I have zero faith in our current carceral system resolving what are ultimately social issues. So I think the
I don't know
reliance.
that word. What's that word?
What did
Carceral?
I say?
What?
Oh, like our system that relies on jails and prisons and sort of punishment and the stick
Thank
of
you
the
for
law.
explaining.
Right? Yeah.
To the I appreciate that.
Our prison industrial complex, basically, which, anyone on the left who's worth their salt will know that the system has historically and in an ongoing way, it's weaponized primarily against marginalized people, right? whether that's on the basis of race, poverty, addiction, mental health. That's who bears the brunt of it. And because of the way that it's currently set up, um, it's just not an effective tool, I think, to deal with sort of issues of censorship or regulating thought or assembly. Like I think that it is a very limited toolbox, and one that easily will backfire when we eventually have a change in government. So, that's sort of the thinking that I apply. Like, how will this play out long term? Not what are the sort of short term implications. All right, we're going to feel good about getting this guy in jail, or deplatforming this person off of whatever social media site. Like, what does this mean long term? And even asking those questions, I think, is met with a great deal of resistance and scorn.
Yeah, no, I agree. Polarization, all that kind of stuff. The fact that we're living in an age where free speech is like the calling card of the far right is a crazy thing to me. It was born on the campus of Berkeley. Literally, hippies fought for free speech, and now it's become. The left would call it would say that the right is trying to like basically legalize hate speech, and the right is saying, no, we believe in free speech. But we are so seduced into labeling things the second that we hear them, like keywords. Like, we're all search engine optimization programs, and when we hear a word, we're like, oh, far right. I just heard free speech. That guy's right over there. And
Bear with me just a second.
Yeah, I was okay. It's the cat. I was like, what is that? I thought a spirit had invaded my podcast for a second. While Caryma deals with the cat, I'm going to show her this when she gets back, because I think it's about time that she gets one of these. Okay, it's a cat. Oh, Caryma. That's my version. That's my prototype. I said I would knit you a cape because you're my superhero, but that's my prototype. And all it really is a picture I found online. And I do not have any plans to actually knit you a cape because I can't knit. But we're gonna get you one. Would you wear it?
I'm not like, I don't want any sort of pedestal, because it's only a matter of time before, like people shouldn't be put on pedestals, and that definitely includes me. So
well, wait a second. I don't know if a cape. I don't know if a cape is a pedestal. A cape could be a modest.
I'm nobody's hero. I'm nobody's hero. I'm a person who is out there with opinions, and just documenting shit. Right? Like,
the hallmark of any hero is humility. I'm just kidding. This could turn into the life of Brian any second. We could just go back to
but I do like that it was a red cape. So I appreciate that attention to detail.
I chose that because of your glasses, because I'm smart. I don't know. Are you going to now do it less? Right? Like, that's the question. It's something now that has happened, where that gerbil, that man, milkshake at you. I'm not trying to lessen it, but it's after the fact now. With beer? Well,
yeah, and like, I don't drink beer, so for like, I smelled like cat piss. I didn't enjoy that either.
That's a bad brand of beer. Cat piss.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not discerning in my, so it might have been a nice beer. I don't know, but it smelled to me like cat piss. No, I'm not going to stop. Fuck that guy. Fuck all of these people who think that they can tell me what to say or not say, like, who want me to evaporate and just not exist in any sort of public discourse. Like, fuck all of you. I'm still going to do what I need to do. But as I mentioned at the outset, I'm constantly reevaluating, right? And safety has to be a priority. So that is top of mind. And these types of situations are alarming because they undermine my sense of peace and security in my own neighborhood. Kensington is my backyard. This is where I live. This is where I work. So that part sucked. However, the public reaction generally has been really supportive. So I'm appreciative of that. And
It's a tough strategy that you have to now employ in a way because, you know, in the words of Rob Bass, I'm not a sucker, so I don't need a bodyguard. People don't like to be looked at as people walking around with bodyguards. The image of that is just like when they can tell, like you have Secret Servicey guys or whatever. It's not that it might not be needed. It's just, it's hard to, it's so distracting, you know, and then that's all they'll talk about, you know, and
I
it's
also
like,
can't afford that. Is a little minor detail
okay.
that I can't afford a security detail that's 24/7. I wouldn't want it anyway. But I shouldn't need one because I'm really just a private citizen existing in public. So my camera is my real protection. And sometimes, you know, that's after the fact, right? That it comes in handy and you kind of withstand the storm leading up. But that's, you know, and there's, I guess, strategies and tactics that I won't disclose here so that they aren't compromised. But I don't intend to just give up at this point, because I think that, you know, my work has value.
It does have value. And I'm so happy that you're saying that. I know, like, there is obviously a part of me that thinks, no, don't like offer your 2 cents that she should keep going because what if it's unsafe? But the fact that you want to is everything because it means that you like actually care about the work that you do. And how would you describe what the work is? Is it exposing movements and what they're like underneath the hood? Is it like, what do you think the documentation part, what kind of work is that so that people know, you know, that what you're doing has value?
There's an element of exposing. I see myself as holding up a mirror a lot of the time, where, you know, my commentary is maybe a bit glib or snarky or past, like, or just plain factual, which then gets read in negative ways, although I don't actually say anything that's negative. But yeah, I see it as sort of holding up a mirror, and it's just through my lens. Like that's all it is. And you know, it's I go out and record what I see, and talk about it. That's the extent of the work right now.
I saw you on that guy that looks like me only in 50 years, his show.
Stephen LeDrew.
That's the guy. I forgot his name. Dad, mention that. That'd be so funny. Just wear a bow tie, call him my dad. Anyways, I hated the interview. That interview made me like cemented in the idea that this format is so much better to get to know someone. The questions were loaded. I think he cut you off in the middle of your answer at every question. Really? Unless it was it edited or was it really 3 minutes?
No, that was it. That was a 3-minute interview. We did 2 takes, with like different sets of questions. And just for the record, this was minutes after I got lambasted by Brian Lilley, who does
Brian
not
Lilley?
like our comics. Yeah, let me tell you this story because
Wait,
it's
okay.
hilarious.
I just wanted to show because we have actually worked together.
We
And
have.
Brian,
I think that might have been what set him off, James.
this just to give context and background. I called Caryma. It was a video call because I was like, Caryma, picture it, Brian Lilley and Gag Ball. I'm like, someone holding his head hair and saying, "You'll write what we tell you to write." And then Caryma added the Ontario PC and obviously all of the artwork and the heavy lifting, and that's why she is my superhero. But he got so wait, he's mad.
Well, yeah, can you imagine? So I show up at the National Club, which is like a fancy schmancy place downtown. And I go into this boardroom because that's where the interview was being recorded. But the guest before me just happened to be Brian Lilley. And so I like head into this room just oblivious, like, oh, I'm looking for Stephen LeDrew. And Brian Lilley sees me and then comes at me and just like, he just offloaded. I think it was maybe therapeutic for him. He asked me why I hate him. He
In
asked if
his
I've ever seen my comics. When I told him, I was like, I don't hate you. I just do political commentary, and comics are my vehicle of choice. Like, have you ever seen your comics? You should be ashamed of yourself. It's vile.
it's not
And then he just like stormed out. But like, obviously, it created a scene. So everyone in the room was like, what was that? What just happened?
You should just walk around with this in your pocket. Oh, it was just this.
Yeah. So anyway, the 3-minute interview happened like a few minutes after that. So I was not like fully on my game. But nonetheless, it would have been maybe a more meaningful conversation if there weren't so many like assumptions baked in. And that I think is his format. So I anticipated that to some extent, but it's not like, it wasn't really an accurate reflection of what I do or what my thinking is.
And his
felt
first
like I was a
question,
stand-in for a
yeah,
lift.
his question was like, why are you out there all the time protesting? Don't you have it good here? I mean, I don't know anything about, my dad there, Stephen LeDrew, but I mean, does he speak about the convoy protesters the same way? Is he this is what I mean. We live in this weird era where our principles don't matter at all anymore. We don't even really have them. We're just sitting here like, if I do it, it's good. If you do it, it's bad. That's literally the motto of like almost everybody, which is a symptom of a sick political system, isn't it?
I totally, because it's very reflexive and sort of sports teamsy, right? And you were absolutely, you hit the nail on the head with kind of, we are all search engine optimized, where we hear a keyword and then that's what it is, and we can't really think beyond that. And there's no nuance, no context. It's just these shortcuts, these intellectual shortcuts that we take. So yes, the obvious answer was, a lot of what I do is documenting people who actually seem to hate Canada, and are the ones who, in many ways, benefit from a lot of what it has to offer. So it's not me who has a problem with Canada, although I do have certain problems with Canada. So I mean, that was the format. So I tried to be a good sport with it, and get what I could across, but it was definitely a hot seat.
People talk about revolution like it's romantic. There is this idea, and it's not just the people that went to Ottawa and stated for the record that they wanted to overthrow the government and put a very strange woman who probably reads tarot cards as our governor general or whatever that was, attorney general. But the idea, or the queen, sorry. But the idea that we are all out there fighting for a revolution, and now I am including the left. When the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, there's a lot of revolution talk. And I remember thinking at the time that this is probably the first time that I thought to myself, is it about the issue anymore, or is it about the right to do it? And if you do it, is it the ability to go far and then to rely on law enforcement to sort of remedy that? But the open talk about revolution kind of scares me a little bit, because I don't think that the people that are talking about it, whether or not their issue is a worthwhile issue or not, I don't think they really understand what that would look like, and that it would kill millions of people. Like a revolution will, especially in the United States, where they have drones and they have the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows them to kill American citizens without due process. I think people need to understand that that type of language is inflammatory, and it doesn't matter who it comes from. If you want a revolution, I'm pretty sure that most of the revolutions that happen pretty quiet, and then when you're ready to revolt, you announce that there's a revolution, maybe, or something. I don't know. I'm not a revolutionary. Are we to take away from people using that kind of language the relief that they probably don't know how to revolt, or are we concerned because it could lead to an actual revolution one day?
It's a very good question. I think you're right that a lot of it is spouted, sort of, and even if it does have some historical context or grounding, there is a disconnect between the words spoken and what would actually play out, what that actually entails. And, as a student of political science, um, there have been countless revolutions across the world overturning various societies, and sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. But it's not fun and games, and that's why through everything I do, even when faced with violence, whether violent rhetoric or physical violence or whatever, I really try to insist on civility and discourse. And that's not to say this approach will save us. I think there are times where you can't actually have civil discourse with someone whose views are um, so innately and fundamentally disregard the value of other people's humanity, right? Like, I think that's kind of a threshold that we can't cross, and we can't normalize that. But at the same time, the alternative to talking things out is fighting things out. And I'm not built for street fights. So that's why I do what I do. And I think people who call for more sort of dramatic revolution, especially if that's happening from behind a screen and you're not really someone who goes on the front lines, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's the thing. Social media, people that use social media need to, I think, realize something. The comments that you make on social media, it's not important. Excuse me. It's not important who comments under you and who comments after that. It's something like, I don't know, 800% of the audience on social media just read. They don't comment, they don't like, they don't retweet, they just read. And so the people that you're reaching are people that are not saying anything, but they're reading. And that's why it's a weird mechanism. That's why social media is strange, because everyone thinks it's about what you post on social media, and it is to a certain extent. But, it's almost like you can, either we say that it's easier to incite people, or that a lot of incitement is out of human beings' hands and it's now algorithmic. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
No, it does make sense, because it's not like the social media platforms aren't neutral in the way that they disseminate or amplify information, right? So like, that is a fact that we need to contend with. We need to contend with our inability at this point to actually regulate speech online, or the way that it's done is very haphazard and arbitrary and lacking due process. And we've just sort of entrusted what have become public squares to these private entities that have zero regard, I think, for the well-being of democracy or civil society. So that's extremely dangerous. We don't actually know fully or understand fully the impact that this has on people, and sort of how it affects the formulation of thoughts, or like the spread of misinformation, conspiracies, hysteria, all of that, right? Like, this is just amped up, and we are all just stumbling around. And so the people who purport to have the answers, right, and this is how we do it, I'm extremely skeptical about that. And I don't know, just calls for nuance.
The thing that like amplifies everything is the thing that kind of makes everything shitty. I don't know what to do about it though. This happens to us every generation, where the TV becomes the boob tube that rots your mind, right? Mm-hmm. And then the internet becomes the thing that you're addicted to at night in chat rooms. It was at the beginning, and then it's like smartphones, and then it's social media, and then we're like combining all those things into one device, and then we're like, what's the problem? Like we knew what the problem was. We're from, and we live in such a strange time that I think that we're like stupid because we know that if we are stupid, we get cool shit. The royal we. And it's kind of scary, but people like you. You may not want to wear a cape, but I would certainly like to. I mean, you can hang it on your wall, inside your belts, or whatever you got on your wall. Please don't stop doing this stuff, and please stay safe. And if you're gonna get a security guy, make sure he's like a Navy SEAL or something. Just make him one of the things that like walks in the background where they don't really know if he's with you or not, and then they're like, just stay safe.
I will do my best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the Intercontinental Champion of Dopeness, Caryma Sa'd. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. I don't know why people want to give her a hard time. It bothers me to no end. But it's probably due to the level of intelligence displayed by people who yell and scream at people's faces, I guess. I don't know. It leaves me at a loss for words when I see when I see men attacking women, especially. Like, Jesus, come on. I know you're 4'10", but Jesus, stop attacking women in Kensington Market. I do miss that neighborhood, though. If you guys are in Toronto, you should go to Kensington. It's a fun place to get food. And that is that. I have a couple things on the go that I'm not ready to announce yet, which makes that entire sentence completely useless. And thank you for joining us on Blackballed. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Blackballed. 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 Blackballed.